2023, and a very warm welcome to you. I am Chris from IELTS Daily, and thank you very much for joining us today in this live class. We have an exciting reading class coming up very soon. I wanted to say hello to all the people who are in the chat. I've just been reading through some of your comments. You will see lots of you on there. Don't forget to say hello. It's fabulous to have you all. Welcome to Mohammed Abdullah. Welcome for the first time joining. Javohir from Uzbekistan. We've got Melina from Nepal. We have Arnold from Gabon, living in Ghana. Nice to have you. We monitor this chat all the time, and I've just noticed that somebody right at the bottom has told us that it's the XIX, so the 19 experienced person, said it's good just here. It said it's good to have the last class before taking the real test this Saturday. If anybody has the real test coming up soon, we wish you the very best. I just had a couple of students who I see as private students, and they took the test recently, and both of them passed. So huge congratulations to those. And if anybody has taken the test recently, let us know how you got on. Share your questions, share your experience with us. We'd love to hear those. Right, what are we doing today? Well, we have a wonderful reading class, and we may later have an opportunity for you to join me in this box. Remember that we can have some of you come and ask some questions about the IELTS test. I'm happy to share my experience and talk about that. Good. What is today's reading? Well, as always, we're going to be applying the Super Chris reading strategy. I think I'm probably one of the only people that applies this strategy, but it works. I promise you it works. Head over to the IELTS Daily website. You can click the site, head over to the reading section, which is at the top here, and you will find a purple video. If you haven't seen this video, you must make yourself familiar with it, because it is going to seriously help you with the test. There's also writing practice. You can watch some writing videos. There are some speaking videos for you to watch. And very importantly, the most important thing about this website is right in the middle there, the two black, just down here somewhere. If you can see that right here, that is the link. There's two links there to download the amazing IELTS Daily app. Now, I'm just going to bring up some of our students who are in the app. I don't know if you can see that here. It might be a bit shiny, but there are some students who have completed their homework. So well done to Amit, who scored a band 6 in speaking. Well done to Enoch, who scored 6 in speaking. We have Elisha, scored a band 8 in speaking. We've got Fatima scoring a band 6 in writing, and I'll choose one more. Let's see if there's a high scorer in here. Most people sitting around 6.5. Gosh, it's really hard to score well in IELTS writing. 6.5 for Fat. Well done to Fat for getting that score. So this is an example of Farangis. Farangis submitted their score, scored fluency and coherence 8, lexical resource 7, grammatical range and accuracy 7, and pronunciation 7. If you can listen to some of his answers or her answers.
Yes, I do. In fact, I really love watching science fiction movies. And moreover, they give me a lot of information about the topics that I don't know about, and I may learn a lot of things from those movies when it comes to romance.
So if you don't already know about the IELTS Daily app, it's a very useful resource. If you haven't already downloaded it, head over to the IELTS Daily website. Right now, we're offering the person who joins for the first time, all you have to do is register, and you get one free speaking or one free writing piece of feedback. You can upload your sample answer, and we will listen to it and give you feedback on how you can improve. Amazing, right? I don't know if anybody else has used the app in the chat. Maybe let us know what your thoughts are. Who do we have? XIX Experience says, I can confirm that the reading strategy is really work and it works efficiently. In the last IELTS test, I got a band 8 in the writing, I think you mean reading, and he even had 3 to 5 minutes left. Fantastic. Well done to you. You should continue that, and we're going to do some reading practice today. And somebody has just told me that they have difficulty with reading, and that person is someone. Well done to someone. Someone just told me. We are going to do some reading practice right now. Here is our reading practice, and it comes from the IELTS Cambridge Book 10. And I try wherever possible to use original material, but sometimes I think the IELTS books are very useful. In the test itself, you have to use the strategy that feels best for you, but I prefer the strategy that I have taught students. Okay? And what we're going to do, I promise I've never taken this test before. I don't know the answers. I've never read it before, so I'm going to set a timer and let's see if we can work on this together. So the timer starts now. Let's go and let's see how we get on. Just going to read this section in red and down to here. When evolution runs backwards. Evolution isn't supposed to run backwards, yet an increasing number of examples show that it does, and that it can sometimes represent the future of a species. Finish there. Question 27. Choose the correct letter A, B, C, or D. When discussing the theory developed by Louis Dollo, we haven't read anything about Louis Dollo, so we can stop there because we know that those ones are in order. For a long time, biologists rejected. Okay, the question of how long lost traits could reappear, the occurrence of a particular feature in a different species, parallels drawn between behavior and appearance, the continued existence of certain genetic information, no mention, the doubts felt about evolutionary throwbacks, no mention, the possibility of evolution being reversible. In this paragraph, it says, evolution isn't supposed to run backwards, yet an increasing number of examples show that it does, and that it can sometimes represent the future of a species. For a long time, biologists rejected. There's no mention of biologists, but we'll park that one. I'm questioning whether that's the right answer, but I don't think that's the right sentence to find it. So for me, 32 is F question mark, but we just put it as a question mark for now. We can stop there because each sentence should be in order. Each question should be in order. And the last one is Wagner was the first person, and that's you can't see that. I'll just make it big enough on my screen. Apologies for that. Let's make it big enough on the screen so that you can see it. There we go. With no mention of Wagner. What I might do is hide myself so that you can see behind it. Okay. And there we go. Now, what we do now is we read the first paragraph. Let's go back again and have a look at the first paragraph. The description of any animal as an evolutionary throwback is controversial. For the better part of a century, most biologists would have been reluctant to use those words, mindful of a principle of evolution that says evolution cannot run backwards. But as more and more examples come to light and modern genetics enter the scene, the principle is having to be rewritten. Not only are evolutionary throwbacks possible, they sometimes play an important role in the forward march of evolution. So we're going to go back. The biologists have rejected the question of how certain long-lost traits could reappear. No mention. The occurrence of a particular feature in a different species. No mention. Parallels drawn between behavior and appearance. No mention. The continued existence of certain genetic information. No mention. The doubts felt about evolutionary throwbacks. They didn't rejected the doubts felt, so that's probably not the right answer, even though we know that we can see evolutionary throwbacks, and we've got evolutionary throwbacks. Oh, excuse me, I'm in the wrong window. Here we go, forgive me. So, no mention of the doubts felt about evolutionary throwback. What lots of people would be confused with there is the fact that it contains evolutionary throwback, and they would think that that was the right answer. That's not the right answer. The possibility of evolution being reversible. So that is given in this sentence. For the better part of a century. In the question it says, for a long time. Biologists have been reluctant, they have rejected to use those words, mindful of the principle of evolution that says evolution cannot run backwards. So the possibility of evolution being reversible, running backwards, therefore the answer is definitely F, for sure. Okay, and that sentence would be in 32 here. Okay, opposing views on evolutionary throwback are represented by. I didn't see anything about opposing views, but maybe we would have an idea later. 37. Wagner was the first person to do research on South America. There's no mention on Wagner. And the next part. Sorry, we've missed the first part on question 27, which was about when discussing the theory developed by Louis Dollo. There was no mention about Louis Dollo, so there's no answer there. We then continue with paragraph 2. The technical term for an... I'll make it a bit bigger for you. The technical term for an evolutionary throwback is an atavism, from the Latin atavus, meaning forefather. The word has ugly connotations thanks largely to Cesare Lombroso, a 19th century Italian medic who argued that criminals were born not made and could be identified by certain physical features that were throwbacks to a primitive subhuman state. Questions again. We've got, when discussing the theory developed by Louis Dollo, no mention of Louis Dollo, so we can go to the next part. Opposing views on evolutionary throwback are represented by... do we have anything about opposing views? I don't think there's anything that I particularly remember, because this whole paragraph is about the technical term, so I don't think that's going to be it. The next part is Wagner believes Wagner was the first person, so there was no mention of Wagner, so there's no answer there. We'll continue reading. Just need to free up the screen. While Lombroso was measuring criminals, a Belgian paleontologist called Louis Dollo was studying fossil records and coming to the opposite conclusion. In 1890, he proposed that evolution was irreversible an organism is unable to return even partially to a previous stage, already realized in the ranks of its ancestors. Early 20th century biologists came to a similar conclusion, although they qualified it in terms of probability, stating that there is no reason why evolution cannot run backwards. It is just very unlikely. And so the idea of irreversibility in evolution stuck and came to be known as Dollo's law. Okay, so lots of information to remember. When discussing the theory developed by Louis Dollo, the writer says, it was immediately referred to as Dollo's law. It didn't say that. It supported the possibility of evolutionary throwbacks. It was modified by biologists in the early 20th century. It was based on many years of research. So, what did it say about Louis Dollo's work? Sometimes you have to read it a second time, but what we try not to do is focus too much on going back and reading again. My advice to you in this case would be, if you don't know the answer immediately, come back later. It's really important to push forward. Much better to push forward than not. The next question was around the humpback whale. No mention. Opposing views on evolutionary throwback are represented by the question of how certain long lost traits could reappear, the occurrence of a particular feature in a different species, the parallels drawn between behavior and appearance, no mention, the continued existence of genetic information, no mention, the doubts felt about evolutionary throwbacks, opposing views on evolutionary throwbacks are represented by, I might come back to this one. This one's a tricky question. This is a very difficult type of question. Next 37, Wagner, no mention of Wagner, and so we just come back to the next paragraph. The most important thing is that you push through and you don't spend time looking for an answer. I promise you this strategy will take time the first time you do it, but it will reap rewards later. So we go to the next paragraph. If Dollo's law is right, atavisms should only occur very rarely, if at all. Yet, almost since the idea took root, exceptions have been cropping up. In 1919, for example, the humpback whale with a pair of leg-like appendages over a metre long, complete with a full set of limb bones, was caught off Vancouver Island in Canada. Explorer Roy Chapman Andrews argued at the time that the whale must be a throwback to a living land ancestor. I can see no other explanation, he wrote. Okay, and the humpback, so question 28, the humpback whale caught off Vancouver Island is measured because of exceptional size of the body? No. The way it exemplifies Dollo's law, the amount of local controversy it caused, the reason given for its unusual features. So it's mentioned because it's trying to support, yet almost since the idea took root, exceptions have been cropping up. This one is also very difficult. It's not to do with the exceptional size of the body. It's not the amount of local controversy it caused. That's not the reason, because of the reason given for its unusual features. This one's tricky as well, so I'm going to push forward and not answer this one again. So, atavisms. Two seconds. Examples of evolutionary throwbacks have led to the question of how certain long-lost traits could reappear. This this type of question is exceptionally difficult when reading aloud. Okay, so when we're doing this in the test, you're going to have a lot of concentration and focusing just on your own writing. And what I would say is that some of the questions that are from the older Cambridge books can be very, very, very challenging. And what I'm finding here is that there's a lot of hard language in this reading passage, and as such, it's quite difficult to pay attention when reading aloud as well. But we'll focus on it and we'll take a little bit more time to go through it. And this is a great example that even for native speakers, these types of questions can be very difficult. So I'm going to push forward, and I promise you we come back and we'll find the answer later. 38. Wagner was the first person. No mention of Wagner. Let's go with the next one, which is since then. Since then, so many other examples have been discovered that it no longer makes sense to say that evolution is as good as irreversible, and this poses a puzzle. How can characteristics that disappeared millions of years ago suddenly reappear? In 1994, Rudolf Raff and colleagues at Indiana University in the USA decided to use genetics to put a number on probability of evolution going into reverse. They reasoned that while some evolutionary changes involve the loss of genes and are therefore irreversible, others may be the result of genes being switched off. Okay, let's have a look at these questions. So, what is said about silent genes? With no mention of silent genes yet. The shark and killer whales. So we've not mentioned anything about shark and killer whales yet. I'm still thinking about this evolutionary throwback examples. So, opposing views of evolutionary throwbacks are represented by examples of evolutionary throwbacks have led to. Let's push forward, because remember that we're always struggling with time in the reading. We will come back and have a look at those. Wagner is the next one, and there's no mention of Wagner. And we go back to this one, and we're going to the next page. It's there. If these silent genes are somehow switched back on, you can't see that. If these silent genes are somehow switched back on, they argued, long lost traits could reappear. So what it's saying is that genetics, if the genetics are switched back on, they could reappear. So, what is said about silent genes? Their numbers vary according to species, no mentioned. Raff disagreed with the use of the term no. They could lead to the re-emergence of certain characteristics. That is definitely this one here, because that means the same thing. They argued long lost traits could reappear. So we know the answer to that one is 29. Yeah? So we know that answer very certainly. Raff's team went on to calculate the likelihood of it happening. Silent genes accumulate random mutations, they reasoned, eventually rendering them useless. So, how long can a gene survive in a species if it is no longer used? The team calculated that there is a good chance of silent genes surviving for up to 6 million years in at least a few individuals in population, and that some might survive as long as 10 million years. In other words, throwbacks are possible, but only to the relatively recent evolutionary past. So, throwbacks are possible. Go back to the questions, and we've got the writer mentioned the mole salamander, no mention of mole salamander. Examples of evolutionary throwbacks have led to. I like A. Occurrence of a particular feature in a different species? No. Parallels drawn between behavior and appearance? No. The continued existence of certain genetic information? No. The doubts felt about evolutionary throwbacks? Nothing about doubts. Dollo's findings and the convictions held by Lombroso. I need to think about that one as well. No mention of Wagner, so we can continue. As a possible example, the team pointed to the mole salamanders of Mexico and California. Like most amphibians, these begin life in a juvenile tadpole state, then metamorphose into adult form, except for one species, the axolotl, which famously lives its entire life as a juvenile. The simplest explanation for this is that the axolotl lineage alone lost the ability to metamorphose, while others retained it. From a detailed analysis of the salamander's family tree, however, it is clear that other lineages evolved from the ancestor that itself had lost the ability to metamorphose. In other words, metamorphosis in mole salamanders is an atavism. The salamander example fits with Raff's 10 million year time frame. So we go back to the questions and we say, the writer mentions the mole salamander because it exemplifies what happens in the development of most amphibians. No. It suggests that Raff's theory is correct. I think that's what it is, because it says example fits with Raff's 10 million year time frame. So that's very clear. It says it fits his time frame and its theory is correct. It has lost and regained more than one ability. No. Its ancestors have become the subject of extensive research. No. Okay, so the answer would be C for this one. Good. Let's continue. More recently, however, examples have been reported that break the time limit, suggesting that silent genes may not be the whole story in a paper published last year. Biologist Gunter Wagner of Yale University reported some work on the evolutionary history of a group of South American lizards called Bachia. Many of these have minuscule limbs. Some look more like snakes than lizards, and few have completely lost the toes on their hind limbs. Other species, however, sport up to 4 toes on their hind legs. The simplest explanation is that the toad lineages never lost their toes, but Wagner begs to differ. According to the analysis of the Bachia family tree, this toad species re-evolved toes from toeless ancestors, and what is more, digit loss and gain has occurred on more than one occasion over tens of millions of years. Wow, lots more information. Which of the following does Wagner claim? Members of the Bachia lizard family have lost and regained certain features several times. Yes, it did say that. Evidence shows that the evolution of Bachilism is due to the environment. It doesn't say that. His research to South American lizards supports Raff's assertions. Didn't mention that. His findings will apply to other species of South American lizards. Didn't say that. It did say this because it said the toad species has re-evolved toes from toeless ancestors. Okay, and it does it many times. So that one is the answer to 31. No mention of sharks and killer whales, and Wagner was the first person to do research on South American lizards. Did it say that he was the first person? It said... It didn't say it's the first person, so that is not given. It didn't say that he was the last person, didn't say that he was a second person, so therefore, if it's not mentioned, it is not given. Okay, and that's very difficult for some people. Let me just move this up. Did not mention that it was there, not given. Wagner believed that Bachia lizards with toes had toeless ancestors. He did not say that. That wasn't the... No, it didn't say that. I would say that was not given too. He believes that Bachia lizards with toes had toeless ancestors. That wasn't the... Wait 1 second. The simplest explanation is that toad lineages never lost their toes, but Wagner begs to differ. This reading question is so difficult for learners. They use a lot of hard language. And I would say that because this is taken from an old book, it's taken from Cambridge 10, a lot of change has happened from kind of 15 years ago to now. This type of question would probably not appear in the IELTS test nowadays, because what it's expecting of you is that you have to be able to know the word beg to differ. I think this one is a really, really hard question, really hard section. So let me just go back again and quickly read that. The simplest explanation is that the toad lineages never lost their toes. But Wagner begs to differ. According to his analysis of Bacchia family tree, the toad species re-evolved toes from toeless ancestors. Correct. So he's saying that this is true. They now with toes had toeless ancestors. This is true. Where are we at? We are at... So what's going on? One possibility is that these traits are lost and then simply reappear, in much the same way that similar structures can independently arise in unrelated species, such as the dorsal fins of sharks and killer whales. Another more intriguing possibility is that the genetic information needed to make... to make toes somehow survived for tens or perhaps hundreds of millions of years in the lizards and was reactivated. These atavistic traits provided an advantage and spread through the population, effectively reversing evolution. Let's have a look. Go back to the top. I think we've covered all of those questions. Now we have to... The shark and killer whale I mentioned to exemplify effectively reversing evolution. They've shown that possibility... it doesn't say that it can't use it twice. They use it to talk about the way that a similar structure can appear independently arise in unrelated species, such as the dorsal fins. So what that is saying is that the occurrence of a particular feature in different species. Notice here how it says unrelated species and it talks about the dorsal fins. Therefore, that is clearly B. Remember that we are looking for language which is similar. So a particular feature is the same as the dorsal fin, and unrelated species is the same as different species. So in the IELTS reading test, you're going to have language which looks the same, but it means the same, but is actually two different words. So you have to be looking for clues like that as well. The answer would be B. One explanation for the finding, I don't think that is mentioned yet, but we can take a look. But if silent genes degrade within 6 to 10 million years, how can long lost traits be reactivated over longer timescales? The answer may lie in the womb. Early embryos of many species develop ancestral features. Snake embryos, for example, sprout hind limb buds. Later in development, these features disappear thanks to developmental programs that say, lose the leg. If for any reason this does not happen, the ancestral feature may not disappear, leading to an atavism. Wow. This one is the temporary occurrence of long lost traits in embryos is rare. That's question 39. Wow, that was a very hard reading passage. I think we've missed one question at the very bottom. Evolutionary throwbacks might be caused by, let me just move that logo. You can't see the logo. Maybe I'll bring this to the front. There we go. Evolutionary throwbacks might be caused by developmental problems in the womb. This reading passage was probably one of the hardest reading passages that I've done for a long time. It comes from Cambridge Book 10, and as I said to you, there is probably no way that such a difficult reading passage would happen in a current test. This is taken from an older Cambridge book, and a lot of you will be thinking, oh my god, Chris's strategy is a disaster. It's not a disaster. What one of the problems is, when I'm doing the test like this and reading aloud, it's actually very difficult to concentrate on switching screens and moving things. Again, a lot of you are probably shouting at me going, I know the right answer and I know why it's the right answer. Great, perfect. When you're doing this reading strategy, it's super important that you read and try to fully understand the passage, the small section of the passage that you are reading. For me, the problem with this reading passage is that there is such a large amount of difficult language in the text and in the questions that I don't think it's really representative of a completely similar style of IELTS question that you would find nowadays. I don't know if anybody agrees with me, but this was incredibly difficult. Even for a native speaker sitting down and applying this strategy in the test, it's hard, okay? You've got to be able to interpret what's in the reading passage and think about whether that is applicable to the questions. This is not a time to go, oh my god, the strategy doesn't work. It is a time to go, there are some times where it's going to be really difficult. And all we have to do is we go back and we just try again. And the more you practice this strategy, I promise you, the more it will become quicker. So we've gone over time for the 20-minute normal reading passage. But what we're going to do is just go back and we'll be able to remember some of the questions that we've gone through, and then hopefully be able to answer the questions a second time. Let's go back to the top and we'll go here. Evolution isn't supposed to run backwards, yet an increasing number of examples show that it does, and that it can sometimes represent the future of a species. The description of any animal as an evolutionary throwback is controversial. For the better part of a century, most biologists have been reluctant to use those words, mindful of a principle of evolution that says evolution cannot run backwards. But as more and more examples come to light and modern genetics enter the scene, the principle is having to be rewritten. Not only are evolutionary throwbacks possible, they sometimes play an important role in the forward march of evolution. So what they're saying is, once upon a time, the idea that going backwards in evolution was not possible. Now they're saying, actually, it is possible. Let's go back and look at the questions. When discussing the theory developed by Louis Dollo, no mention of Louis Dollo, so we know that the answer is not going to be in there. For a long time, biologists rejected the possibility of evolution being reversible. That is definitely true, so we know that's true. Opposing views on evolutionary throwbacks are represented by. We don't have anything about opposing views. And we don't have anything at the bottom which is about Wagner. So at this point, we're sure that we know that we've answered all the questions that we can. Simple as that. Then we go back and look at the next paragraph. The technical term for an evolutionary throwback is an atavism, from the Latin atavus meaning forefather. The word has ugly connotations thanks largely to Cesare Lombroso, a 19th century Italian medic who argued that criminals were born, not made, and could be identified by certain physical features that were throwbacks to a primitive subhuman state. So this person argues that people are born and can't be changed, and they can be identified by physical features. Opposing views on evolutionary throwback are represented by the question of how long lost traits could reappear. No. And I don't think we've talked about opposing views. I think the opposing views comes in the next paragraph. So we can stop there. No mention of humpback whale and no mention of Wagner. Let's go here. While Lombroso was measuring criminals, a Belgian paleontologist called Louis Dollo was studying fossil records and coming to the opposite conclusion. So they believed opposite things. In 1890, he proposed that evolution was irreversible, that an organism is unable to return even partially to a previous stage, already realized in the ranks of its ancestors. Early 20th century biologists came to a similar conclusion. So, Louis Dollo says that it cannot happen. When discussing the theory developed, Louis Dollo, the writer, says that it was immediately referred to as Dollo's law. No, that's not mentioned. It supported the possibility of evolutionary throwbacks. Well, no, it was saying the opposite. It was modified by a biologist in the early 20th century. No, it didn't say it was modified. They came to a similar conclusion, so it's not that one. It was based on many years of research. Doesn't say many years of research. Let's look here. Stating that there's no reason why evolution cannot. Wait there. Okay, so I'm just reading again. This one's so difficult because there's a lot of it does not mean this, but it came to an opposite conclusion. I don't know if you guys think the same, but this is a very complex reading passage. So let's go and read here. We're talking about so evolutionary throwback is evolution can run backwards, yes. Belgian paleontologist coming to the opposite conclusion. He said that evolution was irreversible and that the organism is unable to return even partially. Early 20th century biologists came to a similar conclusion, though they qualified it in terms of probability, stating that there's no reason why evolution cannot. So there's no reason why evolution cannot run backwards. It's just very unlikely. And so the irreversibility in evolution stuck and came to be known as Dollo's law. So Dollo said that evolution is not possible. Okay, so the answer for that one it supported the possibility of evolution through X. Definitely not that one because it can't go backwards. Sorry, it is modified by the... This is my bad. Christopher, what on earth are you doing? It was modified by biologists in the early 20th century because it said that the sentence says, though they qualified it in terms of probability. So that he had one definition of it and they had another definition of it. So they modified it a little bit. There is the answer to that one. So the answer is C. Yeah, it's definitely not possible for B because it's the opposite. And it didn't mention anything about many years of research. And it was not immediately referred to as Dollo's law. Very difficult. Very, very, very difficult. And sometimes it's gonna be where you have to work really hard to find the answers. But under time pressure, it's very tricky in the test. Now, did we find anything else in this one? Opposing views on evolutionary throwbacks are represented by. Yes, so the opposing views, 33, are held by Dollo's findings and the convictions held by Lombroso. So that's the opposing view. So that's definitely G. Because if you remember, it said in the passage, the opposite view was actually Louis Dollo was studying fossil record and he came to the opposite conclusion. And that was similar to what Lombroso... No. Let me read that again. While Lombroso was measuring criminals, a Belgian paleontologist called Louis Dollo was studying fossil records and coming to the opposite conclusion. So Louis Dollo and Lombroso believe different things. So therefore the answer can't be Dollo's findings and convictions held by Lombroso. It can't be G because they don't mean the same thing. Let's go and have a look here. Wow. This is hard. This is so difficult. Normally I find reading tests actually really easy. But there are going to be times where, particularly for older reading passages, they made it really tricky in the older tests. Let's go. We might have to push on with that one. Opposing views on evolutionary throwbacks are represented by Dollo's findings, yes, and the convictions held by Lombroso. No, it can't be that one because they believed different things, right? Who wants to give me an answer? I'm going to come over to you guys. I need your help. Question 33. Question 33. Opposing views on evolutionary throwbacks are represented by... Or are they just saying that Dollo's view is opposing Lombroso's view? Maybe that's what they're saying. represented by opposing views on. Yeah, maybe that's what I think that's probably what they're saying. So if we read the question again, opposing views on evolutionary throwbacks are represented by. So what they're saying is Lombrosso's view is one thing, and the opposing view is Dollo. That's a very difficult question. It must be that one. That's the only one that it could be. I thought that they were opposing evolutionary throwbacks, to an opposition to evolutionary throwbacks. So I was right the first time, so it's G. Gosh, this is tricky. Examples. Let's have a look if there's anything more in here that we can look at. No. And let's do one more before we finish. If Dollo's law is right, atavisms should only occur very rarely, if at all. Yet, almost since the idea took root, exceptions have been cropping up. In 1919, for example, a humpback whale with a pair of leg-like appendages over a metre long, complete with a full set of limb bones, was caught off Vancouver Island in Canada. Explorer Roy Chapman Andrews argued at the time that the whale must be a throwback to a land-living ancestor. I can see no other explanation. Examples of evolutionary throwbacks have led to no particular examples there. The humpback whale caught off Vancouver Island was mentioned because of the way it exemplifies Dollo's law. Yet almost no, it's the opposite. Definitely not the exceptional size of the body. Definitely not the amount of local controversy. The reason given for its unusual features. Maybe this one? The problem is that it can't be the one about Dollo's law, because what it's saying is this person found a whale and it had legs, and this is actually the opposite of what Dollo's law is saying, because Dollo's law should be so rare, should not really happen very often, but this is actually saying that it has happened quite frequently. So it's not supporting Dollo's law at all. So therefore, for me, the only real answer would be the reason given for its unusual features. Gosh, that's a tricky one, isn't it? Lordy Lord, people, this is a very difficult IELTS reading. I don't know if any of you agree, but what I might do is bring up the responses to see if we got them right, and if maybe there's anything that you guys want to bring up with me. Let's see what the answers are. This is test 4. Okay, let's have a look. Answers are C, D, correct, C, correct, B, correct, A, correct. So we've got those ones correct. Yeah, 27, 28, 27 to 31. But it took us a long time to get those answers. Let's have a look at the answers. We didn't finish all the other ones, but we'll take a look anyway. 32 F correct, 33 G correct, 34 we didn't do, and that answer was A. 35 B correct, so we got those ones correct. 36 we didn't get, it was D. And also I've put true and it should have been yes. I should have been paying attention. 37 was not given, we got that one correct. 38 we said true, but we meant yes, that was correct. 39 is no. We didn't finish that one. And 40 is yes. Wow. That was hard, even for a native speaker. I'm not here to pretend that all the IELTS questions are very easy, nor am I here to go through and just give you questions as though I've done the test before. I had never taken that test before, and I wanted to demonstrate to you just how hard it can be, even for native speakers. Obviously, there are some challenges with what I do, where I've got buttons and clicking and moving screens, and the concentration can be quite tricky. I think if I were in a test condition, I'd be spending a lot more time concentrating on looking for remembering as much as possible. But when you're reading aloud, it can be more difficult to pay attention. But that's not an excuse. I'm just trying to make you get a little bit of my input as well. That is the essence of the IELTS Daily reading strategy. And even though this was a bit of a disaster today because it was such a difficult reading passage, I think what it does is it gives you the idea of what to do. And the most important thing that you can take from this class is that you should never stop and try to look for answers, because that wastes time and it makes you panic. The most important thing that you can possibly do is push forward. At all times, don't spend time looking for answers. Make sure that you continue. Have the courage. You need to have a lot of courage to be able to continue and say, actually, I don't know the answer to that. Let's push forward. Because what that does is it makes you answer future questions. You get those questions sorted, then you feel better, and you come back and look at the text again with a fresh pair of eyes, remembering a little bit more from the text that you had from the beginning. It really is a strategy that I encourage you to practice. Okay? At first, it will always take you a lot longer than you think, but the more you practice, it becomes like second nature doing it. This just happened to be an extremely difficult passage, an incredibly large amount of difficult words which were included in there, and I don't think it is completely representative of what a real test nowadays would be like. This is the final class of 2020, official final class of 2023, but I may be back for a surprise class a little bit later in the year. If you are celebrating Christmas over the next few weeks, Merry Christmas to you. If you are celebrating any other holidays, happy holidays to you. I actually think I will come back and do a quick surprise class before the end of the new year. This was difficult, and I hope to show you that nobody's perfect and that we don't all get it right the first time, even though on some channels that they might prepare and pretend that they do. I hope you enjoyed this. My name is Chris from IELTS Daily. It was a pleasure working with you guys today. Don't forget to come and download the IELTS Daily app, because that is going to be extra help for you to practice and pass the test. For now, be safe, go and enjoy the rest of your day. Take care. Bye for now.